Hello and welcome to United We Podcast, brought to you by the United Corpus Christi Chamber of Commerce. I'm your host, Al Ariola Jr., President and CEO. United We believe in the power of collaboration, the strength of advocacy, and the endless possibilities of growth. From advocating for local businesses to fostering growth opportunities, we're here to ignite conversations that matter. This is United We Podcast. Welcome back, Chamber family and friends, to United We Podcast. Today we are joined by our chair-elect of the board and also serving as our Lemonade Day chair, Ms. Cindy Barrera from Frost Bank. Hi, Cindy.
Good afternoon.
How are you?
I'm really good.
Yeah.
Happy to be here. This is exciting.
Before we get into Lemonade Day, I wanted to give our audience a chance to get to know Cindy a little bit. You want to tell us a little bit about the story of Cindy?
Yes, I'm happy to share that. Well, I am born in Corpus Christi and raised in a really small town not too far from here. My parents still live in Edroy, and that's where I grew up. Went to school in Odem, and I graduated from Tolosa Midway High School.
TM.
Yeah, and I've been here my entire life. So Corpus is kind of the big city for me.
Right. Well, for a lot of the smaller cities in the area.
Yeah.
This is the big city.
Mm-hmm.
And when you finished your studies, was there a path you were more interested in than another, or banking was always something you were curious about? Or
my path was not traditional at all. I'll be real honest with you. I did not go to college after high school. My path took me a different direction. I married when I was 19 years old, and at 21 had my daughter. And so my thought process at that time was more to build a family than a career, and that did pivot for me very quickly. I've always had this desire inside of me to do more and to be part of something great. And so being, at home was wonderful, but I really had that need to get out and be part of something. And so I did land an opportunity at Frost Bank very early on, my first, real job in the financial services industry. And it just grew. I was a teller. And I absolutely love that because I got to know so many people, and you have great conversations. And it's almost like being a hairstylist, but with like 5 minutes. People want to tell you their whole life story at the teller window.
Well, because they trust you, right? I mean, They trust you with your money. They're going to trust you with their story, so to speak. Yeah.
Yeah. So.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up, though. I'm from a small town too, and not to say that there was a rush to have a family, but those values are almost instilled in you that this is your path first, and then
Right.
figure out the rest. But I guess there's once you're in the bigger city, there's a broader way to look at things, I guess.
Yeah, and I think a lot of it is cultural, and a lot of it is also religious. And I just found that I had to pave my own way. There was this desire to, go the direction my parents wanted me to go, and I tried to find a balance of also being true to myself,
Right,
and being in a position where I was building something for myself outside of the home was also very important. And Frost has given me opportunities over the years. I eventually left Frost. I was there about 5 years and ended up in the wealth management group in the trust department. But I did, leave Frost, and I pursued some other opportunities, which were great growing opportunities for me. But eventually,
Came back.
as you all know, I came back. I was a boomerang, and in 2016 had the opportunity to come back, and I am. I have the best job at Frost Bank, unarguably, and so I love what I do and have a great team, and it's worked out really well for me.
Well, it's a great company, and I'm not ashamed to say that I personally have banked with Frost Bank for quite some time.
Thank you.
Yeah. Well, it reminds me of where I'm from. It's got that like small town values and yet obviously big city moves, so to speak. Is that fair to say?
Well, we're all about relationships, and you kind of lose that sometimes with the bigger banks. And while our resources are very similar to what you may find at the national banks, we haven't lost that personal touch and, really focusing on the importance of the relationship.
Well, so now back at Frost, been in the space of finances, banking, wealth management you're talking about. Some of those conversations kind of go over maybe some people's heads, even about like wealth management. What does that mean? Right now we're engaged in Lemonade Day, and we're sorting that out. Can you maybe share why you feel there's some value to that kind of programming and why it's important?
Sure. A lot of it is personal. We talked a little bit about upbringing and culture. I'll be honest with you, that's not something that was really discussed in our household a lot.
Right.
And probably more with my brothers than with my sister and I. I tease my parents that the only financial advice that they ever really gave me was, hay comida en la casa, right? So go eat at home.
Right. So, and that's almost to me like we don't need to buy that here.
There's food at home.
Right.
Yeah.
I
Don't
grew
spend
up in one of
your
those houses
Yeah.
too. Yeah.
But we kind of laugh about it now because there really wasn't a lot of conversation about saving money, investing, having a financial plan of any sort. And while my parents were doing it, in particular, my dad, who managed the finances for the household, was doing all those things, it wasn't something that was really discussed. And from one generation to the next, it was a very different story. My grandfather worked pretty much until he died because he had to. And so to see that my parents planned and prepared better, my dad has been in retirement now for some time, and, it really makes a big difference. Now, fast forward, being at Frost, there's a lot of statistics that are really interesting about less than 50% of people having knowledge about financial literacy. And it's crippling, right? Because you get into the real world, and the reality is it's not about how much money you make, it's about how much you spend. And people lack the ability to budget. The statistic of how many people have an emergency fund, it's something like 86% of people do not have an emergency fund. And so really, this passion to educate and inform people, and children in particular as it relates to Lemonade Day, is so important because that's where it starts.
Right.
Is we need to start teaching those skills. They need to know about money. They need to know about saving, budgeting, not getting in debt.
Right.
It empowers people to buy homes, to, build for their families, to retire, invest in things like the stock market or real estate. And it is a truly life-changing skill that I feel that it is our job and our part to share with others.
Right. I'm glad you touched on that too. I mean, even myself had a lot of those conversations growing up at home, and I'm a first generation American. My dad's from Mexico, and I would say I saw him grow up and take more money more seriously as I was growing up, and not necessarily a skill that he had like kind of organically or innately. It was more like, oh, I have a family now. I need to be smarter with my money. Oh, I need to, put money aside. And so I've come to appreciate that conversation about debt, what that looks like, and how that can ultimately eat into your own way of living and costs. And a lot of folks are living paycheck to paycheck sometimes, and that only exasperates it that much more when you're not maybe being intentional or smart with where your money goes.
There's some other things, and I don't know that it's limited to our culture, but I think it's probably more common. It's about, co-signing for others,
Yeah.
helping others. What does that do to your credit when you do that? And then they don't meet that obligation. It's about, just these bad habits that we have. And if we don't teach people a way of doing things differently, we're not going to break the cycle, and we're not going to get past, this. It's just a big problem that we see in America.
Right.
And again, it's not limited to a particular culture. It's just, it's a global issue.
Right. Well, and again, speaking in South Texas and us as Hispanics and some of the cultures that we were raised in, I appreciate the way you touched on the nuances of the way women were treated maybe differently than men. Mm-hmm. Can you speak about your pathway in leadership as far as being a woman and, the challenges that come with it and or, how you rose above some of those challenges?
Sure. Well, I want to say that the most important thing for me in my background, I mentioned that I didn't go to school. I still don't have a college degree. And so I urge young people, they need to get a degree.
Sure.
It's a lot more difficult when you don't have one.
Well, I don't want to push back on you. Nowadays you're seeing the evolution of vocational trades and stuff that maybe you don't if that's not your space. But I think I know where you're going with.
Just some kind of educational, fallback plan.
Get
There's
certified.
a lot of careers, but it's harder when you don't have something, And for me, mentorship has been so critical. There have been so many amazing women throughout my life, but in particular my professional career, that I have looked up to, and I was never fearful or shy of introducing myself and asking women for help.
Yeah.
And there's women going back decades. Sandra Alvarez, is somebody who I looked up to many, many moons ago when I first started in my career. When I left Frost, I was a financial advisor, and having grown up in a small town, even though I was so close to Corpus, I wasn't really integrated into the community here. And so I was trying to meet people. And so I met Sandra Alvarez through the Hispanic Chamber. And I, just looked up to her and I really admired her. Barbara Canales is somebody else who has been one of those women that I've just always really admired and watched because she has been a trailblazer in many ways, but, just her strength, and she's someone who doesn't back down from a challenge. And so she is someone that I've admired. And in my profession, there's been women as well. There was a financial advisor at the first firm that I work with named Connie Geary, and she welcomed me. And in an industry that was dominated by men, she held my hand and she helped me along the way. And we're still friends to this day, and I still admire her professionally, and she's a very dear friend. There's many others that, I
Sure.
can't mention everybody, but I would say that the main thing for me is learning from other women. And, we can learn from each other, not just in the great things we do, but also in our failures.
Right.
And so being empowering and not judging other women and just really surrounding myself with those kinds of positive women that supported me and they had my back and they spoke well of me in rooms that I wasn't in, that's been the key for me.
And that's a big deal. That's a very big deal. Well, I'm glad you touched on that too, because success doesn't always look like just success, right? It's sometimes you fell flat on your face on something, right? And you had to pick yourself up and learn about it and learn where maybe something could have been done differently or better, or certainly with advice and mentorship that always goes so far and helping alleviate some of those. Well, I'm sure that there were some common traits amongst these women that you've noticed. Was there something that stood out the most?
I would say fortitude probably is what I think of, is when I think of them most, is that they were all trailblazers in their own right, in their own industries. And just the fact that they were working diligently, not just to move themselves forward, but they knew the impact of what they were doing in terms of other women, and they were opening doors for other women. And there were many women before them,
Right.
that are another generation and many generations before that. I just think of the ones that I saw when I was in my early 20s, and there's, again, so many of them. One of them that I also want to share is my dear friend, the late Linda Benavides, who was very involved in the chamber, and we lost her during COVID. And she's somebody who also, every time that she introduced herself, she introduced herself as a community advocate, and what can I do for you? And so that spirit of giving really resonated with me as well, is that it wasn't just about advancing in my professional career, but giving back to the community where I've grown up.
Going back to giving back to the community, you've been engaged in this organization, the Chamber of Commerce, for quite some time now. You've also found your way to the board of directors, and now you are chair-elect going into 2025. Am I getting that? Yeah, 2025. Is there something in particular that you've maybe appreciated about the organization that keeps you coming back?
I would have to say it's the connections. The Hispanic Chamber is the place that I looked towards when I started my career. Again, not having grown up in Corpus and not knowing very many people, it was really important for me to make connections and to meet, other people that were not only networking, but that were doing great things. And so the Hispanic Chamber was really where I found a lot of that. So fast forward, after the merger, the chamber's just been a natural place to not only meet people, but to stay connected to great things that are going on, to be aware of what's going on in the community, to address issues that we have and try to be part of those solutions. And so it's really just always been a great place, to find those connections. And I find that the chamber is what you put into it,
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
So you can sign up to be a member, but you can't just sit back and wait for things to come to you. You've got to be engaged. And
Right.
by doing that, it's been very rewarding.
Right, and we're better served for it when we know what businesses are dealing with and their challenges, and we certainly can try to help connect and educate folks on what's going on. But obviously, if that's not reciprocated on the other end, then we can't get there, right? Yeah.
Sure. And, I've never been a small business owner myself, but that's what's so important about this organization. I mean, we are, driven by our membership. And so the engagement from our members is not just about participation to give to the chamber and to the community, but that's how we find out how we can better serve our membership.
Right.
And so we need to hear from them. We need to know what's working. We need to know where are we falling short. And that's really a big piece of what I look to for next year. It's something that has already been built, for years, but May's done a great job. Last year, Amy's, trailblazing this year as well. And so I just want to continue the good work. There's no need to reinvent the wheel, but just continue to hear what does our membership need, where
Right.
do they find value, and how can we continue to offer that?
Well, and I'm glad you're touching on it through the lens of the small businesses that we support. Where going back to Lemonade Day right now with the curriculum in schools, and you're talking 2024. Some folks have said, well, Lemonade Day, isn't that a little novel of a concept? Isn't that a little old fashioned? Well, yes, but there's still not even curriculum in school, and we're talking 2024, right? And so, this is a building block process. Can you share? You touched on why financial literacy is so important, especially in our backyard. But you want to just elaborate a little bit more about the concept of Lemonade Day and what we're trying to accomplish?
Yeah, so the curriculum obviously goes into financial literacy, but it's also entrepreneurship. There's a lot of great skills that are learned through it. What I do love about Lemonade Day is while it sounds like a very, old-fashioned program, it's now 100% available through technology
Right,
like
right.
iPads and iPhones. So I think that'll really engage the kids to get involved. And so it is keeping up with the times. I mean, not everybody wants to sit and do a workbook, and we get it. So I'm glad that the program is available online, so both mentors and participants can, know what the different modules are. All the great lessons are there, and it's there to build a foundation. They're not going to learn everything,
Right.
but we're hoping that it'll pique that interest. And you mentioned that finances can seem a little bit overwhelming, and that's what we want to do. We want to make sure that by introducing these topics early, they are more confident as they continue to grow. We work with one of the high schools, and we've done so for many years through a Frost Financial Youth Academy. By the time these kids get through this program, they are presenting on a stock that they have followed for an entire semester, and they blow our minds every year. I
That's
mean,
pretty
these
cool.
kids they're not only knowledgeable about the stock, but they're telling us why they should or shouldn't buy it.
Yeah.
And it's really impressive, and that's the whole goal is we want to get them comfortable so that when they have jobs, they immediately start investing in their 401k plan, and they have that confidence. Yeah, I've learned these skills. This all sounds familiar. And also, banking is important. And at Frost, it's a bank for everybody. And so we want them to have that sense of belonging when they come to the bank, that they feel like they're going to be taken care of.
Right.
They're not just an account number, but that they really have someone that's going to help guide them and give them that advice.
No, that's great. Well, me myself, I'm not terribly young or terribly old, but me myself, like dabbling in stocks, it's maybe not scary, but you really got to do your research if you're going to do it well, right?
Sure.
Yeah, no, and can you talk about the trends I guess you've seen in the market? I know it's been, I don't want to say volatile per se, but what is it that you feel is, I don't want to say a safe bet, but what should folks, especially if you're trying to build a portfolio and or savings, or, what would be some good first steps?
I would say that regardless whether it's investing or any other financial decision, the first thing I would recommend is surrounding yourself with a good team. A good banker, a good financial advisor, a good CPA, a good estate planning attorney. All those things are so critical. And there isn't one person that can address all of those topics, so that's why I say a team. Even internally, we serve our clients as a team. And so once you have those team members, then you can start asking for advice. And so as it relates to our portfolio managers and our investment team, I don't want to say that we're super conservative, but we have a very disciplined process. We look for high quality type investments. So for the day traders that are looking to make money real quickly, unfortunately, we're probably not the place for you. But for those that are looking for a long-term disciplined, investment management process, those are the clients that we really work well with. And so there are people that you can, hire to do those things. You don't have to be the expert at picking your own stocks. And we know some people like to dabble in that. They
Sure.
like to do it. But for, your long-term money, we really recommend having a good financial advisor that can help you. And that can make a big difference.
I know we're here on a podcast and most of our audience is online. Everybody was speculating that the wave of the future was going to be digital currency and this and that, and you see how volatile that is. What do you believe the future of banking is?
Well, we can speculate all day long,
Sure.
but at the end of the day, for us, it's always going to be brick and mortar, dealing with customers face to face,
Handshake to handshake.
handshaking.
Yeah.
I mean, that to us is the cornerstone at Frost. And, we've seen a lot of different economic cycles. Frost has been around 155 years, and we have gone through world wars and the pandemic and financial crisis one after another and so many different things. The one thing that doesn't change is how we do business, and it's those relationships. So.
Oh, that's great. I'm glad you shared that. Well, look, I want to thank you for taking the lead this year on Lemonade Day. You guys, the audience, be sure to check out our website, lemonadeday.org/Coastal Bend. The official event will be June 22nd all across the Bend. Hopefully we'll have hundreds of stands for everybody in the community to go engage in with these youth entrepreneurs. To your point about mentorship, just even visiting these kids and having those customer service interactions, it goes miles, right? Yeah.
And we still need sponsors. We still need storefronts. There's a lot of ways to get involved. So this is not just for the parents and the children.
Right.
The entire community can get involved. And yes, on June 22nd, we encourage everybody to get out and buy as much lemonade as you can.
Yeah.
I think there's going to be a lot more out there than lemonade. These kids are pretty fantastic. They're entrepreneurial.
Right.
Side kicks in, and I've seen all kinds of cool stuff over the years. So we're really excited to be part of the program, and we can't wait.
There you go.
Hopefully be a nice hot day, and everybody will be in the mood for
A
lemonade.
nice Corpus Christi summer day.
That's right.
Cindy, once again, thank you for your leadership. Thank you for your leadership to this organization. I want to thank our audience for joining us. We will see you again next time.